Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the License to Cure for Device Development webinar series. Today's topic is regulatory affairs. It's processes related to regulatory affairs, which we cover in a wide aspect. My name is Petter Salin, and I'm sales executive at Technia, working with device development, so medical device diagnostics, pharmaceuticals. And we've set up this webinar series to present the functionality for device development. We started this off in autumn last year with some introductions, and we will proceed all through the spring in 2015 and probably through the summer. We will run a webinar every second week. So looking at the schedule, this is what we've done. So we started off beginning of November with a general introduction to the suite. Then and the second session focusing on design controls, how we build up the device history file and the design controls as the development project progresses. Then we had a session on the quality processes, starting in complaints and then following through to a CAPA. Previous week was on control documents, so typically an approval on, for example, a standard operating procedure. And today's topic is regulatory affairs, which has a focus on the regulatory affairs excellence module within the License to Cure suite, but it will also cover other areas. So that's where we are today, and I'll start today's webinar. Very welcome, everyone. For the series, you have this available on our website, and you have it on your invite, so you can connect to that session. Everything is recorded, so it will be a movie available on our site. And through that website, you can also interact if you want to forward the invitation to any of your colleagues, or if you want to cancel your subscription on the invites for the event. Okay, but let's get started. Essence on PLM for device development. As we've pointed out at several occasions, it covers three views and aspects on our product and product development. So the first part is to have the accurate product definition, the current version or the current revision of your definition, relevant for your ongoing development. The second part is the accurate compliance status. So you, at any point in time, will know exactly this is we are compliant, or we have completed the actions which is required in order for us to be compliant. And the third item is the connection to the project, to understand with regards to compliance status, what's required and what are the planned actions in order to achieve proper compliance status. And this is really what today's session will be all about, these three parts. And to understand where we are with respect to a regulatory submission, say a 510K or a pre-market approval or a CE marking. So regulatory submissions with regards to our product definition. So regulatory affairs is a wider set, and it's not just this module which assembles the submissions, even though this is essential functionality. As a basic functionality, we need some way to manage submissions, our regulatory status. But it also boils down to the regulatory rules and parameters which we work with on our products. We might refer to these as quality parameters or compliance parameters or regulatory parameters. But these are any decisions which we do as part of our product definition or product setup or design, which has a regulatory impact. And if we look at product compliance status, of course, this is very much the essence and everything related to the product. And if we look at a device, a medical device, it's related to anything on defining the clinical trial strategy or our sales release or our claims definition. So anything which will affect our submission status in the end, where the submission status might be the final paperwork to get the technical file assembled or a 510(k) submitted to the FDA. And it's not only just the creation of the submission and the review of the submission, connecting it with the product definition, but it's also the build-up over time of the IP related to a specific regulation on a specific market. So over time, we'll build up a knowledge. What did it take to register a new product in Brazil? How do we build up that knowledge? What's the experience? How do we make sure that we learn from our strategies, our regulatory strategies and our actions, to take that with us for the future, to do better risk analysis and risk mitigations for the future. So that's all related to the submissions. But we have, and that's something which is fairly new with the regulatory filing module within the License to Cure suite, is that each submission is treated as a project. So all the functionality we have related to projects and programs is also relevant for submissions, which means that we can use the functionality we have on projects on resource allocation to clearly see that we have the appropriate resources, or to try out a regulatory plan and see how will this work with the current development portfolio. Do we have the proper resources, or do we have specific bottlenecks which we need to deal with? We have also, and of course, this is what we will cover. A large part today is on the general submissions and on the submission projects. What do they look like and how do we execute those? We have also the compliance status, item C here, and that's more related to the global market access, a separate module to determine the maturity of compliance status, typically applied for product compliance on a global setup, or for materials compliance, similar thing there, to state that this is the current status. Item D is to collect regulatory evidence, and this is related to UDI and the unique device identifier, and traceability and visibility across the supply chain, but is also connected to all the mechanisms we use to collect regulatory evidence from our supply chain. So what you see here is one of the supplier portals used for submitting regulatory evidence directly from a supplier into Innovia. This might be one user interface, but the essence is the internal approval process. How do we take that evidence in, if it's a test report or a certificate or materials declaration, and how do we deal with that? How do we approve it? And how do we make it part of our own regulatory file or technical file? So these are different aspects touching upon actually quite a large set of different centrals or modules within Innovia, which we might use for a regulatory purpose. And these are just few. We will touch upon today the UDI. So this is new or fairly new regulation, both in the US and in Europe, and we expect it worldwide. And we will have a quick look at what does it look like on a product, on the product definition for a device. The support we have is on the generation of the DI part on the UDI, and of course the proper tools to generate an e-copy or an archive which can be sent to the FDA, known as the Good ID database. We will also look at an example which we saw in the previous webinar on the quality modules. That's part of the complaints module, where we qualify complaints, do trending, and based on that determine the reportability. And a part of that we have the adverse events reporting, for example the MDRs reporting, where we have templates which we use and populate directly from Innovia and sent directly to the proper database in Europe or in the US. We have all through the work with submissions, but also with regards to say product compliance or materials compliance status, the sync between the technical file and the design controls, or the sync between the technical file and whatever dossier we're building up. So we will look at some examples, for example for the technical file or the 510K, but also later on for the CE mark with materials compliance example. And we have all across the functionality, different modules, we have regulatory reports. And these might be specific from markets to language, whatever they might be. And we'll look at a few examples of those. So that's what I intend to cover today. So I will use an out-of-the-box 14x implementation of Innovia to describe this. So this is where we start off. I'll just prepare my screen here. Okay, so this is for those who haven't seen it before, it's 14x. We're using this environment, and you can easily distinguish that with the compass on the left-hand side. I'm logged in as Helen, which is a regulatory leader, and with that I get this standard view, which is an overview on all my submissions which I'm responsible for as a regulatory lead. So and it really boils down to the essence, but we'll just to clarify the functionality, we'll start off with creating a submission to explain what we define on a particular submission. So under market registration, I have different functions to support the handling of my dossiers or technical files or 510Ks. And in this case, I want to generate a submission. I have different types. I'll accept the standard submission here. And for this, I have different templates, and we'll store it towards the project space. An appropriate title on this, I'll release it for an AED, so a defibrillator, and I have some previous submissions for this. I'll call it revision B. So traditional 510K for my AED plus, which is my that's my product definition. So I'm using a predefined template. That template will set up it will read in a predefined work breakdown structure. It will have a predefined stage gate process where I can have qualifying questions. It will have a predefined resource plan with predefined roles for different tasks. And it might have a predefined regulatory strategy. Now, the 510K is fairly well known standard approach for a submission. So we will use that as a good example. A description, which is read from the templates. I will apply it to one of my products. So let's see. I have a select this one. It will be applied for the US market. Default language for that market is English. And the regulatory authority with predefined contacts will be set up. I have also, for each known submission type, I have predefined information such as registration fees. So if I'm happy with that, I select Done. And what the system does for me now is to build up this WBS. It connects to the product definition. It determines, is there an ongoing project? And if so, then it will identify the design history file. So it does all that in the background, and this is the result. So I can see here that what is read in. So I can see that I have my standard tasks here. Let's make this window a little bit bigger. So I have a predefined work breakdown structure. I could also have templates checked in where it suggests that I start from a control document. I start off with that and take it through my standard routines for approvals for these documents. You can also see here that we have a volume defined document structure for my submission. And I have different tasks which are suggested. And as you might know from the Program Central and Project Execution functionality of the Nogia suite, we can define SNEs for this WBS. The essence is to define the deliverables and keep control on the deliverables, what has been delivered, and what kind of document is this. It provides all the tools to generate the task dependencies, wide set of tools for adding tasks, adding different kind of tasks such as milestones or decisions or whatever it might be. So it's all together. This is really a standard product definition from Nogia. So I will go back to my homepage to get an overview. Let it load this page. So here I have, I can see that I have multiple submissions. It's categorized according to products. So whenever I have my submission, I can always navigate from the submission to the product information. And of course, that's essential to have all the IP, previous IP and active IP on the product available together with my submission information. So at any point in time, I can navigate in between from the submission to my product. And on my product, I will have the details on the product, of course. Here I have an explanation or an image, but I could also navigate to the top node if it's represented with a bill of material, or for example a 3D visualization, or a CATIA file, or a CAD file. I also have a connection to the product line, which might be where I define my general regulatory strategy. As you can see here, I have a governing project for this, so I can also go to the product as such. And here I have the new development project, which is feeding the same product information with relevant input. So here I can see the actual status on my design inputs and design outputs. And here I can have additional details. This might be then from a project perspective, but if I want to switch and go back to the submission, I just go to the regulatory tab, and under here I would have my different submissions. So I can go back and forth between a product development view and a submission, but they will actually be two different views on the same relevant information. Okay, so additional information I have, as you can see here, this is on the submission, but I also here the device identifier for this product, and these are all the device identifier details which are active for this product line, which is where I define the design inputs. Or device identifier, sorry. I also have another tab for my regulatory requests, and at this point in time I don't have any information on that one, but it gives me a good overview of the regulatory status of this particular product line and product. I'll go back to my submissions. Typically, the first thing I'll do on my submissions would be to, let's see, look for one of my recent submissions here. So this was the one I created. So the functionality, since I treat my submissions as projects, I better set them up as project as well. So I'll start off with defining the members for this project. And it's actually have a predefined list of team members identified from the project, and they're primarily defined by project roles. So on my templates I have defined the project roles. It might be R&D, it might be project lead, different people having quality roles or regulatory roles. And since I read in the project, it will populate these as well. And I could add any additional team member. So in this case, I suggest we add another person to this regulatory project or the submission. I assume for the claims approval, we would like to have someone from marketing involved. So let's add that one as well. So let's see. So the predefined, it's auto-populates for the active roles for either the project or the templates. So select marketing, save this definition. And it's saved, and I disable the edit. Reviewing the schedule, the capabilities here is in similarity with the project management capabilities. It's tasks, of course. What's important is some specific type of tasks which you might not have seen previously in Ovia, and these are called interactive tasks and interactive reviews. This is a milestone where we would like to have a review, an interactive review, for example, typically appropriate for an update on a clinical trial. It's not submitting tasks, but it's rather an interactive session where we set up a meeting and we go through the relevant topics in an online meeting where we track the decisions in the tools, a requirement which we have for typical FDA 820 traceability. We could track our correspondence here with the regulatory bodies. Haven't come to that part yet. We will actually have a look at a somewhat more mature project. So we'll have a look at this one. Because the whole essence here is to build up the information in the project, and we do this through our different tasks and completing the different deliverables. So for each and every of the tasks here, as you can see here, there is a control document checked in, and it might have gone through a route for approval or for collection. So this is really what the essence is, and as when the project is proceeding, we're filling up the deliverables here, and in the end, at this final as a final step of a phase, we might submit it offshore for review and approval. So if we go back to the overall view, we had the deliverables, of course, but we have also qualifying questions for the milestone. So if we look at in this part here in the phase, we collected the deliverables. Then we come to a gate review. For the actual gate review, we have the a refuse or accept decision, and for this we will track this in a protocol. But also for the gate review, as we have in any stage gate process in Ovia, we could have checklists. So this is typically the decisions which we review as part of this gate. And as you can see here, these were the actions, or these were the different questions prompted for this gate review. So is the part subject to review according to 510K? Have we submitted it and identified the appropriate center? Is it in sync with the RFD submission? Have we reviewed the indication of use, etc., etc. So all these were read from the template which we used when we set up the strategy, and we've already qualified all these activities in relation to the project budget. Okay. So we look at some of the later stages here, and as we can see here, we progressed with this, and we've completed this task. So that's this is a quick introduction to the functionality. For the typical tasks are the typical functionalities we work with as a regulatory affairs user. Is of course back and forth between the submission, so referred to as the market registration here, and the BOM and DMR. So that's where we view the product definition. We also have projects for the CAPAs and other regulatory or quality assurance activities, and we might share status and compliance status with these activities, and they might affect our submissions, so we will have access to those. Most of the work is done within this module, which is a standard collaboration and approvals. We have a specific module for device identification, so that's for the device identification creation. That's where we keep track on all the attributes relevant for submission to build up of the DI, but also preparation for the archive for the dossier. Control document or document control is the workflow functionality to prove different documents, and of course that's typically what we need to approve the different deliverables we use in the technical file or submission. Program and DHF is the sync with the development projects. So that's what we work with. We also might work with tools within 3D Swim as well as in other parts of Innovia. The overall process which we're following, as I showed you in the example, it was initially the setup of the submission and the planning. So we read in the template, we view the template, and we might add tasks, remove tasks, depending on our specific needs. A lot of the work together with the project or development project is related to the dossier assembly, and that's cross-functional, so typically sending out tasks to different regulatory specialists, syncing those with the quality lead, and making sure that we're on track with regards to the project. Then it goes to package approval, so final review before we send out the dossier, and then just generation of the actual volume to be sent out. I can at any point in time, if I'm at, I wanted to go to a different, my green project. So if I'm at the marketing authority phase here, actually I'll go to the assembly phase. So I select this level, I select this one. So I've selected all the deliverables for this phase. Different actions I have is to sync this one with the DHF. Typically what it does then is to make sure that I have exactly the same revision and version of a control document with the development project as with my technical file. So automatically it will identify any differences. So that comes handy as a quality review before I send out the submission. What I also have is the review of the folders. So let's go into deliverables view. And here I can see that these are my deliverables and they are all updated versions. Okay. So jump out to the project again. So under folders, this is where I generate the actual submission to be sent out. So I have different options for the actual export. I could export it with volumes. It will keep the volume structure intact. And of course, I can generate PDFs with whatever PDF sessions or settings we have. We often implement this functionality together with AdLib for a generation of watermarks and transfer of metadata to the output files. And of course, that's the routines we use in this example as well. I have different tools to track changes here, keep me up to date, and then also to export the actual files. I also would like to go over to the UDI functionality. So I'll switch to the device identification menu. The device identification is created under each product, so connected to a specific product line. So that's where I administer that functionality. If I navigate into my DI definition here, I have all the details and all the attributes which I want to handle within my DI submission or good ID submission. So these are all predefined and set. And that's with 14x. This is the first release of the UDI functionality. But it's as in many implementations on Innovia for device development, we're already managing these attributes. If it's device class, if it's catalog identification, if it's the DUNS number, whatever it might be, we already are carrying that information. So it comes natural to use Innovia as the key tool to generate the package DI, the secondary DI, anything related to the DI part of the UDI. And of course also the information relevant for creating the package sent to the good ID. To support the process, we have, of course, the device identification connection. What's the FDA listing number? Do we have any exemptions? We have the characteristics. If we have definition down on lot or batch level, what settings we have for sterilizations or sterilization method, whatever is relevant for our device characteristics. We could also define information relevant for our clinical data, for our storage and handling. This all information is information we carry with the new device product definition, which we also introduced with 14X. The device identifier has a proper life cycle for submissions, so it goes through 5 stages up to published. And it has formal approvals, so we can route this through the organization, have a Part 11 compliant, so dual signature, of course, which is a prerequisite for this. And whatever we do is stored in our audit trail. So here we have all the details with us all through the development project. Okay, so that's a very quick introduction to the UDI functionality. So if we look at the process which we're supporting, we have one or several synchronizations between the submission and the development project. We have the preparation of the good ID and the DI information, the build-up of the publishing for that, and then the submission for that, and with that also the sync. So this really gave us the proper tools and workflow and approval processes we need to build up a submission, and always guarantee that we build the submission information, the technical file information, directly from the development project. So it's not only information limited to the regulatory affairs user. So if I sign out, I log in as my program manager role, user Chris. In this role, I'm a program manager or project manager, and here I see the different development projects, or it might be COPAs or different kinds of change projects. But you can also see here that here we have our submissions, which we were looking at from our regulatory user. So really sharing that information, regulatory teams as well as the development projects. And we can see exactly the same view, but from our different perspectives on the same product and the submission status or regulatory status. So that's what it looks like. And as mentioned, from here we have the connection to the project and to the product information. Okay, I also would like to give you an idea of what the regulatory status might look like in a specific function or a specific tool. So let's log on as a compliance user, some kind of regulatory report. So in this case, I'm in a product. It's has some kind of product definition. It has a compliance status, and in this case, so typically what it might look like. In the previous example, I looked at the DI information and UDI information, but it could be anywhere in the product definition where I'm generating a compliance status. And in this example, I'll want to generate a subset for the CE mark. And what it does at that particular time is to take the current status of your product definition, all the control documents which are part of that specification, and it packages that in an archive which can then be attached to my submission. So take some time. As you can see, there are a few hundred objects, so that might be a reason to why it takes some time. But not to waste your time, what it does, it's actually creates a zipped archive in similarity with the DI example we looked at previously. And it's an archive which can be navigated. All the different control documents are automatically attached to the structure, and we get the full bill of material here. We can also see what's the compliance status, and for any evidence, any relevant documentation, it's also accessible in the structure. So in this case, it automatically attaches materials risk assessment, which is something we want to have in our technical file. So that's how the archives are working, and that's just one example of a regulatory report which we have in our system. And we have it all through the application, so it's not unique for the dossier or the technical file, DI, or in this case, materials compliance status report or materials compliance report, but it could be anywhere in the system. So with that, I'm summarizing the functionality which I've briefed you on in this webinar. Altogether, it's part 11, compliant submission, composition, and publishing. That's where it's with the essence. We're creating the submissions from templates. We're providing the tools to sync the submission with the development project, with the build-up of the design history file and the deliverables, design inputs and design outputs, which we define for the project. It's driven by task-driven approval. In the environments which I was using, we had task-driven, but it could also be workflow-driven, and it could be done on any client. So we saw it on a web client. It could also be a smartphone, a mobile phone, a tablet, and that's typically where we apply the TVCs for the mobile client. All work is role-based, both for the task assignment as well as the execution and the view on the dossier. So as we saw, when I was Helen, I saw the submission setup. When I was logged in as Chris, we saw the development project view and the overview of the program. So it's role-based all through. It follows the deliverables that give us the status, and it provides tools. I didn't go into depth about those, but with the latest version of the TVCs, we've released a wide set of collaboration tools to be able to have a discussion thread on the contents. And these could be added to the audit trail, or if we want to, we could also swipe the discussions we've had on the contents. The audit trail is the standard audit trail in Innovia. It's Part 11 compliant. It follows European and US or global requirements on electronic records and signatures. We looked at the predefined checklists and questions which we have. These are read from the templates and used all through the application. We can track the interaction with the regulatory authorities, what has been sent, both what's been sent with regards to the submission, but also what was their reply and what kind of reply was sent. We could also track, so we have a clock for the response times, so we know exactly that we're keeping the timetable in line with regulations. Anything we do in the system could be decisions, could be meetings, whatever we build up in design controls is tracked and stored. So over time, we build up a library with knowledge on different submission forms, different experience on different regulatory authorities, and we have that with us when we're planning submissions for the future. At any point in time, I'm connected with the design controls, and I'm connected with the control documents functionality for approvals to display where I am and get the proper approvals for my documentation. And as I've been trying to show you, we always have a connection to my products, my projects, and my programs. So we can switch back and forth between product status and product status. At the later phases, we generate the DIs and publish the good ID information. And we could also generate other regulatory reports, whatever is required. We build all this on standard Innovia functionality. So I always have made the search capabilities. We could have the free text search applied. So it's really a powerful tool to have online with my development products when I build up my submissions, generate my submissions directly from the development projects, and have everything automatically stored for in my audit trail, and everything completely searchable and reusable. So that's what this is all about, building in compliance from the start and reusing information from the IP I build up in my development project. Okay, we will see if there has been any questions thus far. Okay, if there are no online questions, feel free to send your questions to my email or call me on this telephone number. And of course, feel free to review this webinar on our event website, where you will find the recording on this session available before the end of the day today. And as you probably know, everything is stored on that page. So you will be able to access old webinars. We made some changes to the schedule going forward. So with the updates on RoHS and REACH and Proposition 65, which have happened over Christmas now, we've had a request to run a session on materials compliance and reflect on those changes to explain how that might work in Innovia. So that's the topic for the next session, and it's already on Tuesday next week. After that, we will have beginning of February, we'll focus on complaints and adverse events reporting, so also related to regulatory affairs. It's all on the complaints trending to CAPA handling, but of course on the complaints trending, that's the where we run the decision tree to determine the reportability, and that's when we launch the adverse events reporting capabilities. After that, we'll have a rerun on some of the previous topics. So we'll come back and revisit the design controls functionality. So we will have a few reruns in the spring. You can also see it here with the quality processes, where we've done quite some work on both the quality processes as well as the requirements traceability processes. In the spring, we will also run a session on the recasts. We have regulatory changes on the general MDD framework as well as the US regulations. So we want to cover those aspects and have a discussion on how this might affect the PLM functionality. So with that, I thank you very much for attending today. I'm looking forward to a session already next week on materials compliance, covering the updates for RoHS, REACH, and what they are and how we deal with them within Innovia in the sustainability excellence module, which is applicable to device development, but also other functional areas and other industries. So thank you very much for joining us today, and expect this recording to be available later on today before the end of the day on our website. Thank you very much. Bye for now.